Yo, 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 what up, everybody? What up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Fringe podcast. If I remember correctly, this is episode 17. 17, the follow-through, man. It's amazing. I was talking to my homeboy yesterday about this. Like, there's something about following through, you know what I mean? And when you stick with something for a while, and, you know, I was telling you before we started how we had kind of dropped the ball and how we're sticking with it, man. Shout out to everybody listening, no matter where you're from. If you're here in Ohio, Hamilton, you're outside Ohio. Those of you that listen overseas, shout out. We appreciate you. Appreciate your support, man. We got a great guest today. I'm stoked to do this. We are offsite, out of that, man, stuffy. I love our room, but it's stuffy, bro. There's no natural airflow in there. We are on site, ladies and gentlemen, at Demented Skateshop with the one, the only, the original Jake Benz. Give it up.
Hey, man, how you doing?
I'll insert the round of applause there.
That's good.
So let's start before we jump into your story, man. How you and I met, I think it's pretty interesting. And I don't know if you knew this before we had met, but you've had a huge impact on my son. My son used to come in here, Brady, and you know he's got screws in his ankle now thanks to skating.
Yeah, and I feel bad.
That's all of them, right? But good kid, man. But I remember, you know, he's my stepson. I call him my son. I don't do the stepson thing.
Yeah.
And I remember him talking vividly about the conversations you guys would have about life, about faith, you know. And so I want to say first, before we even jump into anything, I appreciate you, bro.
Yeah, it's awesome.
You've had a big impact in this area, this community. And we had connected a while back. This was it right after COVID?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. That was such a fun time, wasn't it?
That was very funny because I was got 6 skateboards looking for 6 kids to give them to that wanted them and needed them. And didn't know who to give them to. And you're like, hey, man, I got 6 kids I need to give skateboards to. I'm like, all right, awesome.
Yeah, so we had done a collaboration. They donated some skateboards. You know, this is a big sports town, and shout out to all the athletes that are listening. But there's a lot of kids like me and other kids that we just didn't fit into the sports, you know what I mean, world. Yeah. We were into, you know, hip-hop, punk rock, skateboarding, other questionable stuff that I won't mention, you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely growing up.
And I remember the post that I made, and the kids, bro, the kids that got those boards were like kids that needed them, and not just financially, you know what I mean? Like, it was a real turning point in their lives. And so I remember the post that I wrote. It's interesting I remember that because I usually don't remember anything. But the post was like, skating is better than juvenile prison. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like, for a lot of people who, you know, parents, you know, maybe people who are not into skateboarding, they just feel, well, it's just, you know, kids skating. But I think for those kids, man, it was an outlet. And so as we hop into this, man, I'd love to hear, you know, I know some of your story. Tell us about the shop. Tell us about who you are as a person. How did you end up here? And then I'll just throw some prompts and questions as we go along.
Yeah. No, I mean, growing up, I did the recreational sports. I played like a year of baseball, a couple years of soccer, played 4 years of football. And then I was 11, and my sister was 7, and my dad passed away. And he loved football, so I kind of stopped playing when he wasn't there. And I was going through a super rough time in my life because I ended up, I was there with him that night. So my sister fell asleep in the other room, and I was out on the couch with him, and he was complaining about chest pains and kind of throwing up, and he's like, I'm just going to lay down and just, you know, if I wake up and I feel better. And I just remember seeing him like roll over, and I was like watching wrestling or something on TV. And then we woke up to my mom was, I guess, calling, and no one was answering. And she was pounding on the door, and I got up and answered the door, like, hey, what's going on? And she's like, hey, I've been calling your dad. He's got to go to work. She's like, is that him laying on the floor? I'm like, yeah, it's him. And she's like, well, get him up. And I went over to get him up, and he was blue, and he wasn't breathing. So my mom did CPR on him while I called 911. And, you know, the hospital came, took him, or the ambulance came, got him, and we went there, and it was, you know, they tried to revive him, but it was, you know, he was 38, which is crazy because I'm
young, bro.
I'm 38 now, so
that's kind of weird, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. It's very weird because I went through like a period in my life where my mom too, because she became like an alcoholic,
of course,
and got a DUI one time, and she just didn't come home one night. You know, my aunt and uncle hit us up and came and got us, and I always felt bad for her. And as I got older, like I said, I went to junior high. I was in 6th grade, did counseling, and once I got to junior high, I didn't really feel a part of anything.
Sure.
And I remember seeing these kids in junior high.
Can we stop there?
Oh, yeah.
Because I think, this is powerful, bro. I think part of the reason why you didn't feel part of anything was the tragedy separated you from everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say that's true?
Oh, yeah.
Because it's like, and I have a traumatic story as well, and it's like, can anybody even relate to what I'm going? And when you're that age, it's hard to even express yourself, right? But yeah, tragedy can separate you in itself. So sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, no, you're fine.
It's powerful.
No, it is, because like I said, I went through therapy and all kinds of stuff later in life, not really understanding, just kind of pushing feelings away and not really dealing with stuff since I was a kid. And I went through junior high, I'd see these kids like hacky sacking and just kind of like didn't care what people thought.
Yeah.
And I was just in a whole different thing of trying to please people and,
right.
Trying to please my parents. And I was raised Catholic, so like, going to church, it was like the same stuff every week. I always kind of believed in God, but never really had a relationship until I was 23. Because like I said, I started skating, and I missed the bus one day from school. And I seen this kid in class, like he was ollieing super high, and that was the thing back in the day. If you had the highest ollie, you were like the best skater.
For sure.
And I had my mom get me a board from Biggs, and
nice.
She ran it over. Then we had to go to an actual skate.
She ran it over?
Yeah.
That was like the second saddest day of your life, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was kind of nice because, like I said, I got my aunt and uncle and my mom.
Got a nicer one.
You got me a nice one because back then, $175 for a skateboard
sure.
in 2000 was,
that's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money for a gift. So once they got me that, I just kept doing it. And it was weird when you were doing it. I didn't realize till I got older, but it was a therapy. It gives the kids an outlet.
For sure.
It kind of kept me. I would get in trouble. My mom would get upset because I'd get taken home by the police.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Hey, you're skating down these stairs." Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're good. You're good.
This is the thing about a skate shop.
I love it. It's raw.
Demented Skate Shop. We don't have any of those. I can order some. We just have the regular skate tools. Those ones were like $30, and I just sell the regular tools for $15. But I can actually rethread your trucks. I charge $5, and I give you axle nuts or kingpin nuts, depending what you need, and I can regrind them for you. All right, cool. Thanks for calling. All right, bye-bye. Yeah.
Love it.
That's kind of sick.
Those are the outtakes. I love it.
Yeah, but so after I started skating with this kid, and then he had like a skate park in his basement. His parents hated it, but we ended up
in
having
his basement.
Oh yeah, so it was loud.
That was
obviously.
A cacophony for sure.
Yeah, I busted a few lights, and we'd have like a quarter pipe on one side, a little box and a rail, and like a little bank on one side with a bank to ledge. But we had this little spot next to it. We started kind of the old completes we had, a wheel broke or whatever. Probably the cheaper completes you buy at a department store. We would sell that stuff. We had like a little skate shop. We would sell to like the neighborhood kids.
Nice.
And then go to a real skate shop and buy, the better stuff that we wanted. But we didn't have jobs, and we would mow grass and shovel snow or whatever. And then my aunt and uncle were like, "Hey, we want to start a business." So when I was 15, after doing it a couple years, not even thinking like, "Oh yeah, we had a skate shop." We tried to do it. Because I didn't think about it being a real business.
Sure,
we were just kind of trying to hustle.
It was a means to an end.
Yeah, like to buy that next board that was broken. And
sure.
They were like, I just was jokingly like, "Hey, we should open a skate shop," because I was into it obviously, and he did it in the 90s and 80s, and his uncle did it in the 70s. So he's like, "All right, there's some interest there. He knows what's popular. We can have the money." And
sure. I
think we only started with like 10 or 15 grand, not a lot for a business,
amazing,
but we just kept growing it. But yeah, he took us here and was like, "Hey, this is our skate shop." And I was 15. My sister was 11. She helped like paint.
That's amazing.
We kind of did everything.
I love
Took
it.
stuff from my room to like decorate the shop. And then it's been 23 years now, which is crazy to think. And I just felt like there's not a lot of God in skateboarding.
Yeah.
And as I got older, like I said, I was 23, so I was doing the shop for 8 years. And I finally had some friends come in. They had tattoos, piercings, and skated. And they're like, "Hey man, we go to this church." I'm like, "Okay," I was like, "If I can come, this is how I look." So they're like, "No, you're cool. Like you can come there."
If you look like that, I might be okay to go.
Yeah, I was like, okay. So I went, and it was Imago Day
in
Westchester. It was Pastor Jim Crabb.
Okay.
She was at the Courts of Praise in Tri-County, and he was a pastor for over 30 years, and he finally retired, but he was probably doing it, man, 40, 50 years, like a while.
Wow.
But he was always really nice, and they had a youth pastor there named Vince Marquis, and he ended up doing some youth stuff, and then I was working a lot at the time, and I couldn't go to church anymore for on the mornings.
Sure.
and they started their own church at like someone's house here off of Hamilton Mason, pretty close to the skate shop. Okay. So it kind of worked out for me to go in the evenings.
Nice.
So I ended up going there with them, and then they eventually got a building, and now we go to this place in Trenton just because it's a little closer. Yeah. But I still try to go there once a month, and sure. I really appreciate all the people that have got me to where I was going. Because when I started to go to church, I kind of realized if my dad wouldn't have died, for years I just kind of, you blame God, but really it's the devil. It's not God's fault,
Yeah.
But I just kind of realized, I was like, man, I wouldn't have met all the people I've met if my dad didn't die. You don't really see God's plan. It took, like I said, I was 11, I was 23, so it took 12 years for me to like realize he wants me to be in this. This is like my passion. How lucky am I to, when I was a kid, I was go to the skate shop, like, man, it'd be so cool to work at a skate shop. And then got that opportunity. And then I was like, once I worked here, I was talking to the reps and stuff, ordering stuff. I'm like, that'd be cool to be a rep. And then I was 20, working at a shop for 5 years. I was like pretty young for being I was like a sub rep where I was helping my buddy that worked for Circus Shoes.
Nice.
And I was helping travel across the Midwest, and going to skate shops, showing them shoes.
Nice.
Putting orders together, stuff like that. And then the only other thing was to turn pro, obviously. And
sure.
I had all this stuff going on, so I couldn't move out to California or anything like some of my other friends did. But 2 out of 3 is not bad.
For sure.
Like for living your dream anyway.
Definitely. Yeah, that's huge, man. But, just the way that all fell together, it's like, and I think people don't often talk about this. When you hear people in churches talking about like, hey, what's my calling in life? What's my purpose?
Yeah.
And the way some people talk about that, especially people in some churches, it's like, well, God's like a genie, and if you just rub the bottle the right way, and you know what I mean? It's this mystery and this riddle you got to figure out, and if you jump through this hoop and you do this and you do that, and well, how do I know? And I've always said, man, it's not that deep, bro. It's simple. Mm-hmm. For me, it was find the Lord, right? You start with that, right?
Yeah.
Have a relationship with Him, but what is the thing that makes you feel the most alive? You feel what I'm saying?
Oh yeah.
What's the thing that makes you feel alive, the most alive? How can you use that for the good of the world and the glory of God?
Yeah.
And if you can do those 3 things, like it's probably part of what you're called to do. Something else I'll tell you, and I don't know if you've ever tapped into this. I'm sure you have in conversations with kids. You've worked with tons of youth, but my experience has been often the way that God wants to use you, the area in your life that He wants to use you the most is the area in which you're the most wounded.
Yeah.
You feel what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
And so when I think about your experience with your dad, I've gone through some stuff myself, like that wound and that really hard thing back there. We can speak to people about things that other people can't because of that lived experience. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and it makes you stronger, too, and it's cool that you can – I'll share it individually. That's why I tried to, like, film myself, like, tell my testimony, and I couldn't really do it. It didn't seem genuine. And then I had one other – we used to do Bible studies up here, and I want to start doing them again. I just, you get kind of, like, bummed out when no one shows up or whatever. So it was like – I just kind of like your podcast. You just got to keep doing it, and the people that show up, cool. And one day I was just like, I'm going to share my testimony with whoever comes, and it was actually my pastor's daughter.
Oh, wow.
And she grew up in the church, so she didn't really, she's very blessed to not go through a lot of the stuff that I went through, whether it be, doing drugs or drinking and, being with girls and, like skating kept me away from some of that stuff. But some of the skate scene obviously has some things in it that when you're skating and jumping down stairs and stuff, or you needed energy, it was like you'd be popping Adderall or, you'd be drinking at night to kind of feel the muscle soreness go away, or smoking weed to just kind of get your focus down if you're ADHD or whatever. So and I always, like I said, believed in God. Then when I started going to church, and still not perfect, but definitely better each day, and just grateful to still be here. And now I have a 3-year-old, and because my mom died of cancer in 2020, or no, it was 2022.
Sheesh.
No. Like 2021. It's like crazy how quick. It's been like 4 years this year in June.
That's hard.
So it was on my my wife and our anniversary, actually.
That's when it happened?
She passed away, yeah.
Really?
So it sucks that it kind of...
Oh my gosh.
But we had a kid right after. It was 2021 because we had my kid in 2022. So I was like, I thought it was kind of cool. I didn't get to tell my mom. I wanted to tell her, but I would have felt bad. She wouldn't have been able to meet my child.
Right.
So like, I was always bummed out about it, but I didn't want her to feel like she was missing out.
Sure.
But she beat cancer like, because she had it in 2015. We had our wedding in 2014, and she was getting better, but it was like an ongoing thing for like 8 or 10 years.
Sheesh.
You know, she beat it. I think it went in her first it was breast cancer, then they removed it. She did the chemo, beat that, and then it went to her like bone, liver, and lung.
Yeah, it just
and
starts
then
spreading.
beat that, and then it went to her brain,
Wow.
and they couldn't do surgery on that.
She fought. She was a fighter.
Yeah, she lived a while. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, and she was always very, very sorry for, like, she didn't, like, abandon me on purpose. Just when we were younger, you know, I would watch my sister, and then, like, when I was, like, started the skate shop, maybe I was, like, you know, 15, I think 16. You know, I was doing the skate shop for, like, a year, had my license, I could kind of drive and do my own thing, go to work.
Mm-hmm.
But she was living with, you know, when you get older, I feel like these people just get, like, kind of a companion. You know,
For
I wouldn't call it her boyfriend.
Yeah, I know what you
But
mean.
she ended up, you know, she needed somebody. She's a single
Yeah.
mom, had 2 kids. She kind of, I think, thought that I could take care of myself. And then she took my sister, and they moved with this other guy, which is still in Harrison where I grew up. But I lived in this house until it got foreclosed on.
Wow.
She didn't tell me that
Oh my
the bills
gosh.
weren't getting paid. But there was times where, like,
Sheesh.
I wouldn't have water, wouldn't have
Wow.
electric. And I just
Really?
thought it was,
And how old were you?
like, so I was probably 16.
Wow.
Because I didn't
Gosh.
really realize. I thought it was just something. I didn't know that was not normal. You know, I had one friend over one time, and you know, I had candles lit or whatever, and I had my dog with me, so I wasn't gonna leave my dog. But he's like, "Hey, like, my
Yeah.
mom said you could come over to my house," and I was like, "No, it's cool, man. Like, I got candles. Like,
Yeah.
I'm good. Like, I don't need electric. You know, whatever.
Yeah,
I'll
yeah,
get
yeah.
it another day." And if I didn't have water, I'd have like a jug of water. I'd brush my teeth,
Sure,
or you know,
sure.
take a pirate bath
Right,
in the bath.
right.
Like,
Yeah.
people didn't really know. Like I
been
said,
there,
I
yeah.
went to school and didn't really. People thought my house was cool because it was like the party house.
Right.
I didn't have parents
No-
around.
no supervision.
So, yeah, people thought
was a spot.
I was the cool one. And then as I got
Yeah.
older, I was like, nah, it's having my own kid. You know, it's like, it's nice to have
Yeah.
that, somebody care about where
For
you're
sure,
at.
for sure.
You know, like other people's parents are calling. I'm like, hey, where you
Right,
at?
right,
And I'm
right.
just like, no one's calling me. I didn't really
Yeah,
think about it.
We're going through some stuff with our son, right? One of our sons. I won't say is you'll remain unnamed, young man. But yeah, he's struggling, bro, struggling, and he's young. He's a full blown, unfortunately, a full blown alcoholic, and you know it got so bad where we had to kick him out of the house because of stuff he was doing.
Yeah.
And we tried everything. You know, he's been to rehab probably 8 to 10 times. And now he's living with another family member, and like I still roll up in that house and do surprise. I call them cell shakedowns. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I'm the CO, bro. I'm
Yeah.
coming in. You know, what are
Yeah.
you doing? What you got going on? You know, and I went in there, and while I'm doing it, I'm never like cruel. You know what I'm saying? Like there's always love with everything I do with him, and I love him to death. He's amazing.
Yeah.
And which is why it frustrates me. I see the person that you are underneath all that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so I'll go in there, and you know he was in there. I rated his spot
Yeah.
like 2 or 3 days ago, and some of his friends were there. These kids that shouldn't have been there. I'm like, bro, you guys got to go. You got to go. And
Yeah.
you know he's got a fifth of liquor. You know I grab it, I pour it out, and these other kids they're younger. They're younger than him, and like substantially younger than him. And I'm like. And their parents, they're nowhere to be found. These kids are running the streets.
Yeah.
And I told him, it's like, look, bro, there's no judgment on their parents. I don't know what their parents' situation is.
Yeah.
You know? I said, and I said this after the kids left. I'm like, just so you know, man, like, this is what love looks like. Love isn't me just, and I'm not saying your mom didn't love you, right? I'm not, this isn't a thing about that. But, like, I want him to understand, like, bro, love is telling you the hard stuff. Love is checking on you. Love is if I know that you're cracking your head, I'm gonna stop you, or I'm gonna make it uncomfortable, or I'm gonna show up and I'm gonna check on you. You know, even if you're not ready to go get some help. Like this is love, bro. Just don't forget it. You know, I know you hate me right now because I just ruined your fun, but bro, like this is love.
Yeah.
And why am I doing this? Because I remember being you, way worse, really. And
Yeah, they don't realize it. Like,
Nah.
and that's how, when I had a kid, and like my mom, like I said, towards the end, she was always trying to be there and help me out. And like we talked about it one time, then she started crying, and I just felt bad. 'Cause
Sure.
I just wanted to. We never talk. You know, families don't really talk about stuff. And,
right.
You know, I just wanted to make sure she kind of knew. You know, I just wanted to have that conversation with her because as I was like getting older and kind of realizing stuff, and I was like, it was affecting my marriage. Where she's like, you're like dealing with stuff that
Yeah.
you've had a lot of stuff happen, and you never really dealt with any of it. And I just, like I said, was after that house got foreclosed, I went to another place. I was 18, first house, and then that girl left, and then I was like, man, I don't have a house again. And so my aunt and uncle took me in, and then when I met my wife, we were over there because her dad would be gone 6 months out of the year because he worked like out of the country and stuff. Gotcha. So we'd watch his house, and then we had to get out of there. It was like another man, I don't have anywhere to go. So my buddy, he actually passed away like a month ago, but he was a really good friend growing up skating with him, and he let us stay there for 2 weeks, and then found a place, and we've been there now 8 years. But when you have a kid, it's weird. You feel like how God feels about you, where like he really loves you. And he wants the best for you, and no matter what you do, you're going to love your kid.
Right.
And it's weird how when I had a kid, I started to understand more everything, and it really made it a lot easier, I guess, and want me to be better, but it just, you notice a lot more stuff now that I didn't notice before. But we'll see as life goes on.
Yeah.
I got some people coming.
No, you're good.
What's up, Devin?
Good. I guess a good place we can segue is, when you think about the kids that you deal with, the kids that you interact with over all these years doing the skate shop, you have this experience with Jesus, right? You come to the Lord, you realize for yourself by experience that, hey, I don't have to put on, you know what I'm saying? I can be myself going in this building. I don't have to wear these weird clothes. I don't have to get a haircut. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. God accepts me and meets me where I'm at. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so how have you, what's that challenge been like, trying to share that, translate that to a kid that has no reference point of who God is, maybe going through some of the same stuff? I know what it's been like for me with what I do with music, but in your unique, platform, what's that been like? How do you translate that when that conversation naturally comes up?
Honestly, sometimes it takes a while because a lot of these kids, depending how they grew up, I grew up Catholic, so a lot of people, don't like God or don't like the church. They just don't know because they don't really search for it. Kind of like I was always, like I said, I just wanted facts, science, and kind of like more of a better understanding everything. And then with all the people that I deal with in here, a lot of them don't believe in religion or the Bible, so I had to find ways to kind of like when they had that movie come out, it was that Heaven is for Real.
Yeah.
And I really started like Lee Strobel a lot.
Yep.
Him being I was like, okay, I can't use Christian, so I'm going to use an atheist that tried to disprove God.
For sure.
And he became a Christian. So then I started looking up some of the facts and stuff, and I would tell people that you believe in Aristotle, right?
Yeah.
Well, you never seen him, right? We
Right.
just assume he was
Facts.
here.
Yeah.
There's only 5 original copies of his work.
How about that?
But the Bible, there's 5,000.
Yeah.
So it's the wheels kind of start turning and just slowly having conversations with people. I've had one conversation with a friend, and he just, he left. He was upset.
Sure.
And I told him, I was like, dude, I won't mention it again. I love you. I wanted to mention it.
Of course. Yeah.
I won't mention it again. And then we're still friends. And
sure.
I had friends that were, Satanists, atheists, agnostic. Another friend, maybe.
Phone break.
Let's see. But no, a lot of these kids that would come in, it would take a while to get them to kind of open up. Some kids, I had a buddy that used to work the shop, and he'd get upset. One kid would come in, and he would talk to me, and he's like, dude, that kid comes in here all the time, never says a word to me. And I was like, dude, he's just I don't know his upbringing.
That's it.
I don't know his home life, but a lot of these kids, they'd come here, and if they didn't have a good home life, this is like their safe haven.
Absolutely.
And they could kind of be themselves, or just, I don't know. Like I said, some of these kids, it's weird how you don't, in skateboarding, I don't know their parents' names.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about them sometimes,
For sure.
unless whatever they tell me. But a lot of these people just, they know we skateboard and we go to the park. It's like you can kind of get away, and whatever problems you're having, whether you're a kid and it's homework, or you're an adult and it's bills, or whatever emotions or things. That's why skating is such an awesome outlet, because it helps you deal with pain, whether it's physical, emotional, something you're going to deal with in life. And it helps teach patience and dedication.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know what it's like to stick to a trick for hours.
That's it. Yeah,
and just getting beat up to death.
For sure. Those are some of my favorite videos, is the guy trying to do the most epic, and he's getting destroyed for a half an hour,
Yeah.
But he doesn't edit the video. He shows all that, and then finally, he lands it.
There's one at Chris Cole. It took him 3 hours to tray flip this huge Waldenberg set. The thing's 25 feet long.
Wow.
It's not as high, but you have to go so fast, and he had a swell belt. He was destroyed.
I bet.
But it just makes you like a different, like to have battles like that
So
and trials.
resilience,
Yeah, definitely. It sucks when you're younger. You don't really think about it, but like it gets better, and you're always going to deal with stuff, and it's like just kind of how you deal with it mentally. And skateboarding toughens you up, or just some stuff. It's like buying a car, buying a house, or just other things that people freak out about. You don't really think about it. You're like, dude, I've kicked with a 10 stick.
Right.
Like that was way harder than this other life stuff that we deal with, and
for sure,
and the emotions and stuff. That's the thing. Sometimes it's hard for skaters to talk about stuff, I think, because you're so, if like you got to get, if you're jumping downstairs, you kind of get angry.
Yeah.
And you want to
like, be able to do it.
It helps you.
Yeah.
You got to really not care about your well-being.
For sure.
To toss your carcass down these stairs or this handrail. You're not trying to get hurt.
Yeah.
But it's also kind of like getting tattoos where it's like you're getting this pain.
Right.
And it's like relaxing in a way.
Yeah.
And it's like
It's
releasing.
cathartic. Yeah.
Yeah. So like skateboarding's like that, where like you're happy, you're sad, you're angry. Like it was always a good time to go skating.
Yeah.
You know? You do different types of skating. If you're more relaxed, you might be skating ledges and just not wanting to fall. And if you just broke up with your girlfriend, you're just like ready to jump down something and just feel alive.
Yeah, no doubt. That's funny.
A lot of good conversations in here. It's nice to hear your son say that, because like I got real bummed out for a while because I was like, at the shop after COVID and just it's slower, and I'm just like, man, is this what I'm supposed to be doing? I feel like this is what I'm, why I'm here. And then we went to this. They just opened up on Milliken over here at a community Christian church. I used to go to this one in Trenton before COVID, and then they closed down. So a lot of older people were going there.
Yeah, I know those guys.
They closed the Trenton one down, and we started going to that Foundation one.
Yeah, I know those guys too.
And we went over here to their opening their youth building over here. And I went there, and I'm like, this is awesome.
What's the youth pastor's name? I think it's
Scott.
Yeah, I just met with him. Yeah,
he was cool because he would do it there, and he would still come over here even though there wasn't that many people. It was just the old school group of believers that were like, this is our building, and these other ones are just so big. And I like the smaller churches too. I don't like the mega churches. I feel like you blend in, and I want to, if I don't show up, I want people to know, like, texting me where you at. But
I get it.
I ended up going there, and I had a lady come up to me, and she's like, hey, you work at the skate shop, right? I'm like, yeah. She's like, hey, I just wanted to thank you. My kid went in there, and I would have thought that was the last place he would go and find Jesus. And I'm like, really? He's like, yeah, like he was going to college, and he was getting into like meditation and kind of like Buddhism and more of that different mindset. Sure. And when he went to come and talk to you, and you were just kind of like I said, talk about facts and science to these kids, and just to kind of like not reference the Bible at all. They kind of like, man, like, all right. And then if they like, well, this guy skates, or he kind of has the same, mental capacity as how I'm thinking too. So maybe there's something to this. So then they kind of start dabbling into it. And it's like, once you really get into it and you see all the science that backs it, it's like, undeniable. That's what sucks, is there's times where I feel like I wish I didn't know, because it'd be easier. It's so much harder to be a Christian and know every time you do something wrong, you feel bad. And just, I used to do so many things and never feel bad.
Right.
Not have any condemnation. And now it's like, I'll get angry driving my car or whatever it is, and I'm just like instantly just say I'm sorry. But there was a time in my life I was trying to be perfect when I started going to church and getting baptized, and found real quick you can't be perfect.
None of us are.
Yeah, and once I figured that out,
and that's not the
way
goal.
Easier.
Yeah, the goal is the relationship, it's the intimacy, right? It's that relationship, and through that, right, God moves us to growth, spiritual growth, right?
Yeah,
it's powerful, man. I think one of these questions I had on here, where was it at? Oh, I think I don't even know if it's on here anymore, but I think that like in the world that we're living in, and the way that the culture is, and the need for these kids, even adults that skate that are in this community, like it's very hard for them to cross the bridge from where they're at into a church.
Yeah.
But I believe, this is going to sound crazy, I believe that this is a church.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like this shop, bro, like what you do, like whether you realize it or not, like you're pastoring people, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I didn't think about it like that.
You're showing them God. And I love that in the Old Testament, like before we had our buildings, and even in the New Testament, like they had a tent, bro, that they carried around, you know what I mean? And everywhere they went, this tent was there. It wasn't a fixed space. There wasn't a sound system and lights and fog. And I love music and I'm not knocking any of that. We're filming a podcast on a nice camera and recording with these mics. I see the irony of that.
Yeah.
But I think, and there's one of my favorite scriptures in the New Testament, talks about how God will use the foolish things of this world to confound the wise. And for a lot of these kids, like this is the church that they need to be. This is the experience that they need to have before anything else.
Oh yeah.
And once they come in here, they have that conversation. For me, a lot of it was music. What I was doing, I was playing shows in regular music venues, bars, clubs, and those people in those environments at them hip hop shows, they weren't just going to walk into a church. Yeah. But I could say something to them. I can mess with them a little bit through some music. You know what I mean? Yep. Make them think about some stuff, provoke them in a way, again, that's not churchy. It's not religious. It's like, nah, man, like I'm going to speak from a way that you can relate, you know? And I'm not that different from you, bro. I used to be out here with you, you know? Mm-hmm. And I'm not looking down my nose at you. You don't need to, you know, we've always, a lot of churches say that. A lot of churches say, come as you are. Mm-hmm. But that's not really what they mean. They mean come until we find out. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, a lot of prosperity gospel nowadays. Where it seems like, and people don't mean to do it. You know, people's opinions get in there. Like I love a lot of churches if it's more scriptural. Yeah. You know, if they're preaching scripture, that's a great church. Yeah. You know, but people definitely get like, oh, if you're a believer and you do this, then all good things are going to happen. And there's people that are homeless that believe in Jesus. I mean, everyone's in different situations. Like there's people find God in prison.
Some of the strongest believers I've ever met are people on the streets, people that are not. Yeah. Facts.
So that's why I always wanted a skate ministry. I always wanted a skate park. I was waiting for so many years. To have a skate park, and I just realized, like, wait a second, you know, where two or more gather. And I was like, this can just be. And I wanted to do Bible. I was doing Bible studies, and you know, and then off and on for a little while, and I want to start doing it again. Life has been so hectic with kid, and just you work 60, 70 hours a week and trying to keep the shop open. Because like I said, I do Amazon, help two buddies with construction companies, I day trade, and work the shop. And a lot of this is just me helping my family out. Sometimes I don't even get paid doing this. Just I know what it means to people in the community, so I really want to keep this place here.
For sure.
But one day, like I said, I'm hoping the day trading works out, and I'll be able to build a skate park and kind of have that. Or just, I thought about getting a trailer and doing church parking lots, little demos, have ramps.
It's a good idea.
But I'd like to be more financially free to be able to just travel the country and do that, you know, because it all costs money.
For sure.
But one day, like I said, just do what I can right now.
Well, you work with what you got in your hand, right? It's the whole Moses thing. God gave him a staff. Hey, this is what I got in my hand. Moses, take that staff and touch this ground. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
The staff that you're holding looks different. The staff that I'm holding, it looks different.
And you got a mic, I got a skateboard.
That's it. And, you know, I think we had this conversation a while ago. You know, some friends of mine, they're pastors in Australia, in Brisbane, Australia, in Queensland, and they actually built a huge skate park, bro, on the church grounds. It's a mirror image of the dog bowl, and it's called the God Bowl. It's literally
that's awesome.
The same exact, but it's on the grounds of the church. Like they thought, listen, and if you're a pastor, I want you to listen close. If you're a ministry, if you're a youth pastor, if you're a financial person in a church and you make some of these financial decisions about where you're spending your money and what you're doing in ministry, they believe that these kids were worth enough, bro, because it's expensive. It's done professionally. Like it's dope. Yeah. It's really nice. And then they do shows, they do concerts outside, bro. It's off the chain.
You can do art, music. Oh, man, that's why a lot of skateboarding is cool because it gets you into that stuff too.
Bro, their youth group is like 1,000 kids now because there was a safe place created for them, right? And that met them where they're at, and you know, you don't have to go to that church to go skate at the park, you know. And it's powerful, man. It's powerful, and I think I'll never forget. I performed there one of the times I was touring down there, bro. It was like I think it was the first time I went down. And I made the mistake of a lifetime. I love black's my favorite color. I'm always wearing black. I just like it. I'm not goth. No hate against the goth people. The metal, I like metal. You know what I'm saying? I like some goth clothing, but I just like the color black. It's just more the color. I just like it. I've always liked it. I'm not depressed.
No, I have too. It's like the absence of color.
I just love it. I
thought it was very cool.
It's the saturation of all of it, really.
That's white.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so and I'm not saying I don't have anything in my closet that's not black, but so I pack all these clothes, you know, to go on this tour. I know it's Australia. I know it's going to be hot, so I got some shorts, and I'm looking at the weather, and you know, I wasn't thinking, oh wait, this is Celsius, not Fahrenheit. They're like, oh, it's gonna be 45, mate. You know, I'm thinking, oh, that's like a cool day in Cleveland. You know, this feels like home.
Yeah.
And so I wear these black pants, a black shirt, bro. Oh my gosh, it was 45 in Fahrenheit. It's crazy, bro. It's like I think it's like 110 degrees.
Jeez.
And man, I almost passed out. But it was a dope show. It was a powerful show. And I had a kid tell me at that show. I was going to take my life, but what you said today, it made me want to live.
That's awesome.
You know what I'm saying? And that wasn't inside of a church building. So back to what I was saying to the leaders, pastors, like, man, we need to start looking at youth ministry differently. We need to start spending our money differently. Maybe that looks like, this is just a thought. Shout out to all my Butler County pastors, youth pastors. Maybe we all just collab and we invest in a skate park and we get behind something like this.
Well, like you said, I think you could have a skate park with also like having music and also art.
Yeah.
And you're involving 3 different spectrums that actually, honestly, like I said, a lot of skateboarders do some kind of play an instrument or, pick up a pencil or a spray paint can, like how they had Scribble Jam. I had a friend that made Scribble Jam where Eminem came from and all these people, and that they're doing a documentary on it right now. And Fat Nick, who started that, he used to have Anonymous Skate Shop before that closed in December of 2015. Yeah. And that was a great shop. And like when I was a kid, they had a VHS, Self-Proclaimed Legends, and that was a very impactful for like the skateboarding and like the tri-state and all the guys that came up from that shop. But it's just crazy with what you can do with music and art and skateboarding, especially for youth kids, because they just build restaurants. They don't really build anything for people to do, or it's all kind of more cliche. They have these Bible camps and stuff for little kids, and it's fun for little kids. But then they get teenagers, and then it's just they kind of get lost a little bit.
For sure. Out of all the conversations you've had, because you've had a lot with a lot of different people, a lot of people coming in. What's one or two of your favorite conversations you've ever had? It could be about anything, with somebody coming in the shop.
It's crazy because I've had so many, and sometimes I would forget. Like I said, when people would be like, "Hey, like you help my kid out all the time," or whatever it was. I helped them. Some of these kids were just shy, and I'd give skate lessons to these kids and kind of get them skateboarding, kind of helped open them up a little bit and to be more confident. And then I wouldn't see him anymore, which just sucks. I get relationships with some of these kids, and I don't ever see him again. But I just hopefully some of this stuff distills into all these conversations. I wish I could just remember one distinctively, because I've had it sucks to have so. It's almost terrible to have so many that none stand out as much, and then just having a couple. Because I remember in my life, I remember one buddy was real strung out on drugs, and he's still trying to find himself. He's in California, and he's a really good friend of mine. And he's doing really good, I know God knows your heart. I know he has a good heart. His parents have always believed, and he always tried to get away from it. And I think as he's getting older, he's getting more relaxed. Yeah. And I was just in my head, I was like, man, if I could just say one person, and it was always him. I was always wanting. His parents always were like, man, I know you believe in God. Like, just they wanted me to hang out with him. And he was a good friend of mine, still is. So I thought about
how it works, though, is it?
No, and that's what sucks. Some of the people that you know closely, you never know. I feel like I do, but I like my buddy that died a month ago. He died in a motorcycle accident. Yeah. You never know.
Yeah. You never know the conversations that they're having with God when nobody's there.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I feel like deep down, because he was still kind of like a nomad. He was he was still searching, but I know he in heart. I know he believed in God. There was questions. He was very good debater, and just always had questions, which is good. It's nice to question stuff. I did the same thing, but I think he, like I said, I think he still went to heaven. And I was struggling with that this past month for a while. I was just I'm just not feeling like working, and just I'm like, man, we work all the time, and I'd rather spend time with friends and family than actually just work all the time, and I'm missing out on these opportunities with my friends and family that it's we're just get caught in this rat race of life, and it's man, I wish I would have called him more time, or I wish I would have told him I loved him.
Yeah, I think everybody has those.
Yeah, but people. Skateboarders, you don't, be like, oh man, I love you, bro. Right. Seriously,
it's kind of
it sucks. You want to say that to the close friends that I had, that a couple of my friends that went with me, I love you guys. No, we don't say that a lot, but. You really don't know. You don't think about tomorrow. And as the older I get, the more I think about eternity and just how much time I've wasted in my life. And I wish I could just, like I said, have a skate ministry. I wish I could just talk to you, which I do. But as it's gotten slower, sometimes I get bummed out. Oh man, I didn't have anybody come in here today. I didn't get to talk to somebody today. 'Cause I had what was it? My youth pastor, the other church he started. He'd always at the end, he'd be like. They'd always say, tell somebody about Jesus today. So I would always try to just one person a day. If I could tell somebody about Jesus, or if I told them have a blessed day, hold the door open for them, or if I helped a homeless person out, and just reminding people like why
Definitely.
I'm doing it. Like they're like, oh, thank you. I'm like, no, I'm just, God's good to me, so I got to do this, you know.
For sure.
So
I think that's a good problem, having too many stories to remember, because what it tells me, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. Like you're very good at practicing presence with people.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's what this is. I mean, besides the selling and the art of skating and all that stuff, but like you being here and being, like you said, a safe place for people to come, that these conversations over time, you get to know people, and like, yeah, I think that tells me that if you have too many that you can't remember, that tells me that you're doing something, you know?
Yeah.
Instead of if you're struggling just to find one. And I can relate to that. And,
there's a lot of kids sometimes, and I'll forget, like I said, I could go through my Facebook messages.
Yeah, of
and
course.
I'll find kids that have been just like, hey, man, you know, I haven't been in the shop in a while, but I just wanted to really let you know you, like, had a huge impact on my life growing up. And they just want to see the shop do well. They fell out of skating, or they, you know, have careers, or they have families and stuff. And some people don't do it forever. You know, like I am. I'm doing it till I guess till I'm dead. I guess because I just it's hard to sometimes. I had a fall the other day. And I was like, man, why am I doing this still? Like, I actually, like, in my head, I'm like, I used to never think how people could quit. And then as we've been selling fingerboards, and like as I've gotten older, been fingerboarding and disc golfing, I'm like, man, like, the skate lessons keep me out and keep me skating and keep me humble, because sometimes it's nice to still know that, hey, my body still works. Definitely. I can still do this. But no, it's really good. Like I said, I've had a lot of good conversations. I'm glad that I've been able to. A lot of people think I'm very positive or encouraging.
For sure.
I'd always want them to think Jesus first. I'm sure they think skateboarding.
Yeah.
But a lot of the kids that have talked to me and wanted to have more deeper conversations, you know, they know truly. And I've posted stuff, you know.
Sure.
I do stuff on as much as I can. Not trying to push it on people, because I had that when I was a kid, and I always hated people just pushing the religion on you. And I think God even didn't really like religion. I think it was always about Jesus. You know, it's there's so many different terms, and probably why a lot of these skaters, it's like, where do I even go? Like, there's Pentecostal Baptist, Southern Baptist,
so confusing.
Non-nominated. Yeah, it's like, what do I do? And so it's very tough.
That's good.
There's really not like one answer.
Sure.
I feel like sometimes I can give these people, but just telling them about what I've dealt with.
That's it.
And trying to just be positive.
One thing people can't deny is your story. And I think your lived experience, and just like, I'm not afraid to have the hard conversation. Let's talk about the science. Let's talk about, you know, does this really add up? Can it handle scrutiny? Can it handle questions and wrestling? And I've always said, as a pastor now, like, I encourage people to wrestle and to fight with the Bible and to fight with God, because if you don't really do that, like, you're just drinking the Kool-Aid, bro. Like, you're just doing it for somebody else. And if you're doing it for somebody else, or you're doing it for the wrong reason, and you're not doing it out of the genuine pursuit that you want to know, right?
Yeah.
Like, those conversions, they don't last. But the people who really dig and they wrestle and they find it for themselves, and there's people along the way like you, like me, we're dropping seeds, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. There's other people that are coming and watering. But I encourage, you know, I say that almost every Sunday at our services. Hey, I want to give a shout out to anybody here who doesn't believe in Jesus. We're glad, because they come every week. Yeah. We're glad you're here, man. I don't care if you believe in God or not. I'm glad you're here, bro. You're here.
That's the first step.
You atheists. We had a couple witches a few weeks ago. Hey, man, I'm glad you're here, homie. Yeah. We ain't threatened by you being here. We're glad you're here. You know, it's just that simple. And I think sometimes the reason why we struggle with that is we want to try to be the Holy Spirit. It's like, nah, bro. All I got to do is I got to be authentic in my walk and my relationship with God, and naturally, you know, it's gonna spill out. It's gonna spill out.
Yeah.
There's a story, and I want to share it with you, just as an encouragement with what you're doing. My best friend in the world, his name's Phil Evans. He's a pastor in Australia. He's in Sydney now, and he pastored his church for about 15 years, and now he's the head chaplain in one of the biggest prisons in Sydney. And when I tell you, this guy has had a massive impact in the world, both in Australia, outside of Australia, here in Ohio. He's done stuff all through the prisons here in Ohio. Amazing guy. You know how he came to the Lord, bro? It was a skate competition at his church. And he was just some punk kid, you know what I mean, that like it didn't felt like he belonged. And, you know, his homeboys were like, hey, they got this thing popping off at the church. There's some girls, you know what I mean? Yeah. Hey, say whatever you got to say, you know what I mean? Don't lie, don't sin. But, just keep it real, man. And they're like, they got the skate competition. And he was getting into that at the time. And, like, now, like, he's impacted thousands and thousands and thousands of people. And you never know who of those Phils that have come in here. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
And now he's like, he works with the Whosoevers and those guys out in L.A., with Brian Head and Sonny and POD and those guys and all the stuff they're doing. And so, like, just don't doubt the value of the power of the conversations you're having. Because dude, bro, I'm convinced. Like, when we stand before Jesus on Judgment Day, and like we know we're good because we trust in Him and not our own work. You know what I mean? Yeah. But when we see God, I believe there's going to be lines of people, bro, that we didn't even know. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah.
Like, you never saw that dude again. I never saw that girl again. You know what I mean? Or whatever that conversation was. And all these people, you know what I mean? Like, that we've impacted that we don't even know. Our responsibility is not their reaction. It's just to plant the seed. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so you're doing that, bro. I salute you, man. Hats off. God's hand is on your life. His anointing's on your life, man. It's an honor to know you. I want to encourage everybody, before I ask you this last question, if you're anywhere near Hamilton, Dayton, Ohio, Cincinnati, Ohio, come check out Demented Skateshop, Demented Skateshop. We are located. Are we in Liberty Township here?
Yeah, it's a weird area because it's a Hamilton address.
Okay.
Fairfield Township, but across the street's Liberty Township. So, okay. But it's 5617 Liberty Fairfield Road, Hamilton, Ohio 45011.
And then what's the website?
DementedSkateShop.com. And then if you could, obviously, Instagram, Facebook, Demented Skate Shop, you look up Demented. A lot of people, no one's ever copied our name. That was another thing about the name. I had a buddy that, when I started going to church and stuff, he's like, man, you should change it to Disciple Skate Shop. And I was like, of course. That's cool. Yeah. I was like, we can't change the name. I was like, that's like when you change the name of a business and people think someone else bought it or whatever. Yeah. So as I've gotten older, I've actually appreciated the name a lot more because in my head, I didn't really think about what demented means. Like, if you look it up in the dictionary.
Absolutely.
But a lot, as a skateboarder, I feel like you get judged a lot for how you look, and I feel like we look demented. Yeah. When people come in here and talk to me, they're like, oh, this is actually a nice shop. Yeah. It's very nice. Like, this guy goes to church, and if I kind of like it that way for people, like, if they don't want to give me a chance, they look at the window or they see the name, they're like, I don't know if I want to go into that place. And I've had a lot of families like, man, I'm glad I came in here. Like, I was not going to come in here because the name. Right. And then I gave you a chance. And I was kind of like, that's kind of how I like it. I don't want you just to come in here. It says God Skate Shop out front. Like, I don't want you to think that.
Because that will repulse a whole group of people doing that.
Exactly.
You'll never be able to have those conversations.
Yeah. So.
It's funny. It's like, what do you think is going to be happening? Demented. Oh, you think there's going to be candles?
Like rituals in here. And,
people are so weird.
People are crazy. And that's why I'm always glad I've grown up the way, because I used to envy people that just, like I said, how I'm trying to raise my kid, like, in the church, and, like, she's going to have such a good life where she doesn't have to worry about some of the stuff I've had to deal with. But in doing that, like, how I've dealt with all that stuff, it really showed me how much God loves me, because He uses people in the Bible that aren't perfect.
Facts.
Moses, everybody that all He used, David, all the stuff that they did. Like, you think about that in today's terms, and it's still crazy. And it's crazy that they still messed up, even knowing God like that. I couldn't imagine, like, God having a presence like. And I'm not someone, like I said, it sucks to me sometimes because I never could reference, like, how people could just reference Bible.
Sure.
I could do stats and statistics. So I felt like God used me kind of in that frame for, like, the skateboarders, because I was like, well, they don't care about any of that stuff anyway. They don't believe in the Bible. So I'm kind of going to go this direction, more of like apologetics. I kind of like that direction, more of like.
Which will eventually get you to the Bible.
Yes, exactly. For sure. But.
No, that's good. It's powerful. So, last question, man. If I could ask you, what do you, when your casket drops, bro, when you're lowered into the ground, because we're all headed there, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's tomorrow, it's 30 years from now, 50, 60 years from now, what do you want your legacy to be? What, beyond skating, beyond everything, because who you are as a person is not just what you do. Right?
Oh, yeah.
We know this.
Yeah.
And so what do you want your legacy to be? Of course, you had a passion for skating. There's nothing wrong with that. It's a good thing. But what do you want your legacy to be? What do you want your kid to, like, man, that's something I can remember?
Honestly, kind of like you were saying with, like, going to heaven and seeing all those people. I'd love to just to be able to see at my funeral, like, all the people that I've helped over the years. Like, if, I died tomorrow and they're like, dude, Jake from Demented just died.
Yeah.
And it's just all over the tri-state, and maybe no one would be there. But I would like to think you know, you'd see people that, man, I haven't seen that guy in forever. Like, that's cool. He came and I impacted his life.
A bunch of randos.
Yeah, because I mean, some of these kids, you know, I've known them for so long. You know, now they're bringing their kids grown, in here. You know, so it's cool to see that. It's nice to see the impact that I've left on these people's lives. I just hope that it's more for Jesus and not as skateboarding. As I get older and older, it kind of shifts. Like I said, after COVID, I mean, we probably should have closed down a year or two ago, and I've just stubbornly kind of been like, all right, I feel like this is what God wants me to do. I've not been doing a great job of it lately because I've been just working and trying to provide for my wife doesn't work, so I have to work twice as hard and still trying to do the skate shop and day trade with my buddy and then work. You know, I usually wake up at 2, 3 in the morning. Sheesh. I'll go do Amazon 3 something, 4 something to like 7 or 8 something. Then I'll try to come to the skate shop, trade with my buddy for like an hour or two, go home, change, say hi to my family, go to my other job, 10 something, 11 something, work there till 3:45 or 3:30, come here and work 4 to 8, go home, wake up, do it. And then like the weekends or, you know, shops closed Sunday, Monday.
Get a little break.
And I'll do the construction stuff on Saturdays and Sundays. So like, and then Monday, Tuesday, or Tuesday, my buddy works the shop. So like I have time still with family, but I would love to do more. I used to go to Matthew Ministries and I went on a mission trip for our wedding because we couldn't afford to go. So we had everybody donate to our honeymoon, but we just went to a mission trip to Mexico and Tijuana. And that was real cool. They're very humbling to see people making houses from whatever they can, and they're so happy, and I miss that. I wish I could, like I said, I just don't want to. That's why I want the money for the financial freedom. For sure. Because I don't care about money. I just it'd be nice to be able to help people,
be freed up to
be able to kind of just tell people about God every day, and skateboard, and my family. We could have gardens and just, you know, it sounds all. It's awesome. Just get some land somewhere, and we all can just live and not work and just, you know. So maybe one day, but I'm gonna keep, like I said, keep doing what I'm doing here. Whoever walks through the door, if my life just affected one person, it makes me happy, you know, that I was here and served a purpose. But as I get older, I'd love it to be more just for that, not like working. And you can show God anywhere, you know. That's why I always just try to be positive and encouraging and just have a good mental attitude. So people are just like, man, this guy, like, we're sitting here, whatever we're doing, we're lifting wood all day, and just this guy's I'm still trying to be happy and not complain. And whether they start asking questions and be like, well, I guess he's a Christian. You know, this guy, you know, he seems all right. You know, he doesn't complain, or he's really trying to live. Like, not everybody sees everything. My wife sees a lot of the stuff at the house, and we had, you know, troubles. We were arguing a lot, and I started going to therapy and dealing with a lot of that stuff for my dad and my mom, and everybody has, it's funny, man, like you said, you're talking to all these people on this podcast, like, you could write a book on everybody's life. Oh my gosh. Everybody's life. Everyone has an autobiography, and if people really started, not comparing, but just seeing, you know, whatever people are dealing with, somebody's angry one day, they could have just lost a parent, and they're taking it out on you, and it sucks, the road rage stuff or whatever it is, but
so true.
You know, you got to really, I just really try to think about other people. I try to treat people how I want to be treated, that old school thing, and I would love people to, like, you know, praying for me and just supporting local businesses or just your community, you know, whatever that is, and just really just love your neighbor, like what Jesus said, man. Like, I think that's what really gets everybody in that right direction. If you just try to love everybody, then you're not going to do all the other stuff you know, I used to mess up with. It's not that deep, Exactly. Keep it simple. I think that's the biggest thing. Because with skateboarding, I had to do that. It's a very mind game where it's, if you think too much about it, it can make it a kickflip seem a lot harder. And then if you don't think enough about it, then you won't do it. You got to do the certain steps, but it's weird how it's like thinking without thinking. Skateboarding to me has always been very ironic, because it's like the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result.
But you get the result eventually.
Yeah, and it's kind of like being like I said, like a believer, man. People are always like, oh, it's all about faith, you know, and I know it's a thing people say. I just always wanted to hear more evidence. I wanted to hear people like, I like hearing, and you don't hear a lot of churches do that, where they're actually like, let's talk about the science, the stuff they found to prove David existed, you know, like them finding Noah's Ark or whatever, these old artifacts, and, you know, the Dead Sea Scrolls, you know, all this stuff that people keep trying to say, oh, well, they rewrote the Bible, and it's like, well, we found this from 2,000 years ago. This is all word for word.
Word
it's
for
like
word,
95% accurate, you know, other than a few other words. But
no doubt.
It's, I don't know. I hope it gets better. It is weird how the church, it's 2025, and there's stuff that needs to be updated. For sure. People are very welcoming, you know, which is good, but to some extent, you know, we're so welcoming. It's like we're welcoming everything, and some stuff God isn't cool with.
Facts.
You know, and there's stuff, like I said, I'm not perfect either. I still cuss here and there. You know, I mess up sometimes. I can get angry and not be mean, not be too nice. And my wife usually, like I said, usually the people at your house.
So you're human, is that what you're telling me?
Exactly, yeah. That's what people, they think like, oh, you're so happy. And then my wife would be like, no, he's not happy all the time.
Well, as we close, man, I just want to encourage anybody listening, you know, walking with God, this journey, if you're just curious about Jesus, you're just looking into it, it is a lot like skating, man. It's insanity. It's the definition of insanity, right? Is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. You know, when you choose to follow God, don't ever fall for the lie that just because you go to church or you believe in Jesus, you ain't going to get cracked in the shin, homie. You ain't going to get something twisted. Something ain't going to go your way. You know what I mean? You're going to get hurt. Somebody's going to offend you. Something bad's going to happen. But, man, if you keep pushing and you keep practicing and that's really what discipleship is. It's following the practices of Jesus, right? Eventually, you're going to land it. And I'm not saying you're going to arrive, but you'll find this rhythm, bro. And there's something about, even I'm sure when you're doing a trick or I'm working on rhymes and, man, I got that bar and that rhythm, bro. It's like it's there. You lock in. You'll have these moments where you lock in with God. And then you'll have moments maybe a month later where you get cracked again. It's all part of it. Doesn't mean God's left you. Yeah. He's still there. Yeah. So, my brothers, my sisters, thank you for joining us for another episode of the Fringe Podcast. Grace and peace. Don't forget to go check out Demented Skateshop. Check it out. We'll post all the links to their socials. Definitely check them out. If you don't live in the state, you can buy something online. Support these guys, man. They're doing God's work, homie. Grace and peace.